Welcome back to the deep dive, where we,
Wow.
try to give you that shortcut through stacks of information, getting you really well informed fast. And today, we're doing something a bit different. We're taking a full plunge, a really deep dive, not into a specific historical event this time, but into the introduction of a truly, well, monumental scholarly work. We're looking at a pivotal figure, someone whose vision shaped a nation. And according to this new series we're examining, his vision is still lighting the way towards, get this, a future as a world superpower.
That's quite a claim to start with, isn't it? And our mission today, as you said, is really to give you, our listener, a high-level overview, like a mental map. We want to unpack the incredible scope and, yeah, the ambitious claims laid out right there in the introduction of this new book and its accompanying audio series. It's a shortcut to understanding just how deeply this work connects one person's life and principles to a nation's entire story, past, present, and, very pointedly, its future.
Exactly. And what's really striking, I think, is how it frames history. It's not just looking back. This introduction, it seems to be drawing a direct line from a foundational vision to, well, an aspirational destiny. It's historical, but also incredibly forward-looking.
It really is. And the figure at the center of it all, the person this whole universe of scholarship revolves around, is Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Now, for anyone perhaps less familiar, Quaid-e-Azam isn't his name. It's a title. It means great leader. And in Pakistan, that name Jinnah is absolutely synonymous with the country's founding, with nation building, and
Right.
particularly with constitutional vision.
Right. And the source material we're digging into isn't just some light biography. We're talking about a series called Quaid-e-Azam, Constitutional Vision and Pakistan's Destiny, which itself is based on a pretty hefty book, the expanded scholarly edition of Quaid-e-Azam of Pakistan. Constitutional Vision and Political Praxis by Zaheer Ahmad Meer. And when we say series, well, it's huge. An ambitious 65-episode audio series, 65, titled Pakistan, Zindabad, the Next World Superpower.
65 episodes is quite something. That signals an immense level of detail. It's clearly designed to explore Jinnah's life and legacy in a way that's, frankly, rarely attempted. It promises real depth.
Absolutely. And for you listening in, this deep dive today isn't just about soaking up historical facts. It's about understanding how this kind of intense focus on one individual can, reveal the very DNA of a modern nation, its constitutional framework, its political struggles, even its hopes and aspirations. The series introduction promises those aha moments about leadership, about vision, and about the messy, complex business of actually building a state. And crucially, how the past gets interpreted to shape the future.
And as we dig into this introduction, what really leaps out is, as you mentioned earlier, that title, Pakistan Zindabad, the Next World Superpower. I mean, that's not subtle, is it? It's more than just a catchy phrase. It's basically the thesis statement for the whole project. It's provocative and neatly frames the narrative, moving way beyond just recording history. It's making a statement about destiny, about global influence.
It is incredibly bold, almost prophetic, you could say, for an academic work especially, to make such a strong claim, the next world superpower, tied directly to Jinnah's vision. What do you think the introduction suggests is the mechanism here? How does it imply the series will connect his historical actions to this future destiny?
Well, it signals that this isn't going to be a dry, purely historical account.
Right.
Not at all. It seems to position Jinnah's vision, particularly his constitutional vision, as a kind of blueprint, a guiding light, something that wasn't just relevant then, but is still actively steering Pakistan towards contemporary and future global influence. The implication seems clear. If you want to understand where Pakistan is supposedly headed, according to this work, you have to go back and understand Jinnah's original vision, because the series presents it as the essential foundation for that destiny.
So it's arguing for a kind of continuity, a direct causal link.
It appears so. A profound belief, it seems, that the founder's constitutional vision and, importantly, his political praxis, which is, the practical application of his political ideas through his actions, his strategies, that these aren't just historical artifacts locked away in the past. They're presented as living principles, dynamic forces still propelling the country. It's not just what he believed, but how he operated, how he put those beliefs into practice.
Okay, so praxis is about the how. Makes sense. And the introduction promises to trace Jinnah's own journey, his transformation, to illustrate this.
Yes, exactly. It lays out this extraordinary narrative arc. It promises to follow his life right from the beginning. Karachi, 1876, described as humble beginnings. Then tracing his path to London for his legal education at Lincoln's Inn, which was clearly formative. Back to India, making a name for himself at the Bombay High Court, showcasing that legal brilliance early on. and then moving into the political arena, the halls of Delhi, navigating those incredibly complex dynamics.
And the really dramatic shift, as the intro highlights it, is that ideological journey, isn't it? From being known early on as the ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity, a figure really working for coexistence, for joint political action within India, to becoming, ultimately, the father of the nation, the leader singularly focused on creating a separate state, Pakistan. That's a huge transformation. The series promises to really dig into the why behind that.
Absolutely. The introduction frames these phases not just as dates on a timeline, but as significant shifts. Ideological shifts, political shifts. That early role as a bridge builder is in such sharp contrast to where he ended up leading the Muslim League and the Pakistan movement. And this progression, the introduction suggests, highlights Jinnah's, his adaptability, certainly, but also the evolution of his thinking, and finally that laser-like focus on achieving Pakistan. It sets up a really compelling narrative arc, promising to explore the challenges he faced and how his core principles guided him through those monumental decisions.
And underpinning this whole narrative, the introduction makes it very clear, are three core themes, three pillars: vision, discipline, and sacrifice. These aren't just thrown in there. They're presented as the essence of his leadership and the light that still guides Pakistan. Let's try to unpack those a bit based on what the intro suggests. First, vision. What kind of vision are we talking about?
Well, the introduction strongly implies it was primarily a constitutional vision. It went far beyond just drawing borders on a map. He seems to be presented as envisioning a modern, democratic, progressive state, one founded on principles like justice, the rule of law, equality for all citizens, importantly, regardless of their religion or background. And it wasn't just a fuzzy ideal. The intro suggests this vision showed up in his actions. Through his commitment to legal processes, to parliamentary methods, to meticulous negotiation, he wasn't just reacting, he was actively building towards a future based on these deeply held constitutional ideals.
Okay, a very principled, forward-looking vision and discipline. That seems linked to his legal background, obviously. But how did it shape his politics, according to the intro?
Yes, the legal training is key.
Yeah.
The intro suggests it gave him this incredibly meticulous, logical, strategic approach. And this discipline wasn't just personal. It permeated his political strategy. You see it in how carefully he constructed his arguments, his insistence on constitutional methods, his ability to remain steadfast on principles even under immense pressure. He was apparently famous for his precision, his punctuality, sticking to due process. The intro presents this not just as a personality trait, but as a political methodology, a strategic tool that let him navigate really treacherous political situations effectively. It made him a powerful negotiator.
A methodology, right? That makes sense. And the third pillar, sacrifice. That word carries a lot of weight in contexts like nation building. What kinds of costs does the introduction hint at?
Immense costs, it seems. The series will likely explore the personal sacrifices, his health, which famously suffered, his personal life, the sheer toll of that relentless political struggle. All for the cause. And politically, too. He was often isolated, facing strong opposition from many sides. Yet the introduction frames him as unwavering in his resolve. That steadfastness, that willingness to endure hardship for this larger goal, is presented as absolutely fundamental to his leadership. So these three, vision, discipline, sacrifice, they're positioned as more than just historical descriptions. They're the enduring light, supposedly, for Pakistan's path. Crucial for the past, but also for today and tomorrow.
Which brings us right back to that headline claim. Jinnah's story still lights Pakistan's path and its destiny as a rising world superpower. Such a powerful statement. How do you think the book and series plan to actually connect his historical actions, these principles, to modern Pakistan's aspirations? Especially this rising superpower idea, maybe even in the context of things like AI.
Yeah, that's the big question the introduction really puts on the table. It suggests a direct, unbroken line. I expect the argument will be that Jinnah's focus on constitutionalism, rule of law, economic development, a strong defense, and independent foreign policy, and his specific vision for a progressive Muslim-majority state that also protects minorities, that these aren't just historical footnotes. They're presented as the fundamental ingredients, the DNA, for Pakistan's potential. His constitutional vision provides the stable framework, perhaps, and his political praxis, his practical methods offer the way to achieve national goals. So the implication is, even in today's complex world, the AI era you mentioned, these foundational principles offer a kind of moral and strategic compass, a way to navigate challenges and claim a prominent global role. It suggests his foresight created a nation designed to evolve and succeed, even in unforeseen futures.
So it's the how and the why his methods are still relevant even now. Okay. Which leads us to the structure of this massive project. 65 episodes. That number alone tells you the kind of depth we're talking about. This is clearly not a quick overview. It's promising a really thorough, almost granular look at his life and legacy, presented as this continuous thread linking him to the future.
Absolutely. The introduction outlines it quite clearly into 5 main parts. Each builds on the previous one. It's designed to guide the listener through this comprehensive journey, understanding Jinnah not just as a historical figure, but as this, well, enduring source of national identity and aspiration.
Okay, let's walk through that structure as laid out in the intro. Part 1 is early life and education, covering episodes 1 to 8. This seems crucial for understanding the man before he became the Quaid, the foundations.
Precisely. It's about the roots. Episode 1, the young Jinnah, starts in Karachi, 1876, looking at his origins, family, the early environment that shaped him. Then London Dreams follows him as a teenager to Lincoln's Inn, exploring how that English legal education molded his thinking, his belief in constitutionalism, his analytical skills. The Barrister from Bombay shows his rapid rise in the legal world back in India, highlighting his early intellect and courtroom prowess.
And then there's that really intriguing one you mentioned earlier, episode 4, the Treaty of Medina. That seems quite specific.
It does, and it hints at the scholarly depth here. The Treaty of Medina from early Islamic history established principles for governing a multi-religious community, sort of civic contract. The introduction suggests that Jinnah studied this, and it influenced his own thinking about minority rights, pluralism, and constitutional governance in a modern state. It connects his vision to deeper historical and intellectual roots.
Fascinating. Okay, then the intro mentions first steps in politics. His initial involvement with the Indian National Congress when he was still advocating for a united India, followed by a mentor and model exploring the influence of Gopal Krishna Gokhale, a key liberal leader, on his early political ideals, and Unity Mission, which highlights that early phase where he earned the title Ambassador of Hindu-Muslim Unity. Before ending this section with the seeds of leadership, looking at how his reputation for principle and sharp legal argument started setting him apart.
Exactly. This whole first part, according to the introduction, is about the making of the man. It aims to show how his early life, the legal training, the initial political steps, they all laid the groundwork for the principled, monumental role he'd play later. It gives you the essential backstory.
But things didn't stay static, did they? Part 2, Political Evolution and Constitutional Battles, episodes 9 through 20, seems to cover a period of major change, where his initial ideals clash with the political realities, leading to a significant shift in his thinking.
Yes, this is a critical, transformative section. Episode 9, Ambassador of Unity, likely focuses on his peak moment of advocating unity, the Lucknow Pact of 1916, where he brokered that agreement between Congress and the Muslim League, a major achievement. But then Storm Clouds starts to detail his growing disagreements with Gandhi and the Congress leadership, especially over their methods, like mass civil disobedience, which Jinnah, the constitutionalist, was wary of. Caliphate and disillusionment is another key turning point mentioned. Jinnah disagreed with the religious nature and tactics of the Caliphate movement, which aimed to protect the Ottoman Caliphate. His distancing from it furthered his disillusionment with Congress politics.
So you start seeing the cracks appear in that united front. Then the intro highlights the Nehru Report from 1928. Jinnah apparently saw this constitutional proposal as ignoring Muslim concerns, which directly led to his counterproposal in 14 points. These points, the intro suggests, became the bedrock of the Muslim League's demands for safeguards and autonomy.
Absolutely pivotal constitutional debates. The series then covers the roundtable conferences in London, where Jinnah fought for Muslim representation on the world stage. This intense period led into political isolation and his exile in London in the early 1930s. He stepped back from active Indian politics for a while, practiced law there. The intro frames this not just as a break, but as a period of deep reflection, maybe strategic reassessment. Watch him from afar.
And then he comes back. A leader returns in 1934, followed by the huge task of rebuilding the Muslim League. The League was apparently quite weak then, so he had to basically rebuild it into a major political force. Then comes the elections of 1937. The intro suggests this was a wake-up call, showing Muslims the reality of their minority status in the provincial governments formed under British rule.
Yes, a stark realization of political vulnerability, which solidified his resolve. This section culminates with Day of Deliverance, Jinnah's symbolic protest against alleged Congress mistreatment of Muslims in the provinces where they held power. It marked a deeper divide. So this whole part, as the intro presents it, tracks that crucial shift from unity advocate to the leader demanding a separate path, outlining the constitutional arguments and political clashes that drove it.
Okay, that sets the stage for part 3. Rebuilding and National Struggle, episodes 21 to 35. This sounds like where the movement really catches fire, moving from debate to intense struggle and Jinnah's transformation into a mass leader.
Exactly. The intro signals a real escalation here. The turning point and rise of a mass leader. Explore how Jinnah managed to mobilize millions, becoming a people's Quaid, giving a unified voice to Muslim aspirations. Then, the absolute landmark moment, the Lahore Resolution, March 23, 1940. The intro emphasizes this as the pivotal event where the demand for Pakistan was formally adopted as the goal. It changed everything.
A point of no return, almost. The intro then mentions coverage of the war years, looking at Jinnah's leadership during World War II, followed by the Gandhi-Jinnah talks in 1944, those famous, ultimately unsuccessful talks between the two leaders, highlighting the now irreconcilable differences.
Yes, showing the gap had become too wide. Then you have the Cripps Mission of 1942, another failed British attempt to find a compromise for post-war India. But the momentum for the League was building. Lee descendant and the 1945 elections are key here. The intro highlights the Muslim League's landslide victory in Muslim constituencies in those elections. This was presented as undeniable proof that the League, under Jinnah, represented the vast majority of Indian Muslims and their demand for Pakistan.
A clear mandate, as you said earlier, but the struggle wasn't over. The intro points to episodes on the Simla Conference in 1945, the Cabinet Mission Plan in 1946. These were the last-ditch efforts at negotiation, right? Which ultimately failed.
Yes. Intense, high-stakes negotiations. The Cabinet Mission Plan, proposing a three-tiered federal India, briefly seemed possible, but collapsed due to differing interpretations and mistrust. And then, tragically, Direct Action Day in August 1946. Called by the League to press for Pakistan, it led to horrific communal violence, especially in Calcutta, a very dark chapter showing how high tensions were.
A terrible turning point. The intro then covers final confrontations, focusing on Jinnah's dealings with Nehru and the last Viceroy Mountbatten in the final stages. The political endgame.
The political chess game, indeed. Leading inevitably to the decision is made, partition becomes the accepted, though deeply painful, outcome. The last episodes in this part, Preparing for Freedom, and the last stretch, cover the frantic, immense challenges of actually setting up a new state administration practically overnight, amidst chaos and migration. This whole section, according to the intro, really showcases Jinnah's strategic mind, his leadership in uniting a community, and the incredibly complex forces that led to Pakistan's creation.
Which takes us to Part 4, Independence and Nation Building, episodes 36 to 50. The birth of the nation and the immediate, immense challenges. Jinnah as Governor General. This is where the vision meets the harsh light of day.
Absolutely, the test of leadership. The Mountbatten Plan confirms partition details, leading to the birth of Pakistan on August 14, 1947. A moment of immense joy, but also trauma and upheaval. Governor General Jinnah explores the weight of leadership he shouldered, and his foundational First Assembly address on August 11th is highlighted. That's where he famously laid out the unity, faith, discipline motto, and his vision for an inclusive state where minorities would be equal citizens. A remarkable speech given the context.
And the challenges came immediately. The intro mentions the Kashmir Challenge right away.
Yes, flagged as the immediate unfinished business. A conflict ignited at birth, with consequences lasting to this day, highlighting just how complex and precarious Pakistan's beginning was.
The intro then suggests the series covers Jinnah's comprehensive vision for the new state. Things like minorities and inclusion, reinforcing his commitment to tolerance. Foreign policy foundations, setting the course for Pakistan's place in the world. Economic vision, his hopes for development. Civil service and discipline, building the state machinery. And armed forces and security, establishing the military. It sounds incredibly thorough.
It does. He was laying the groundwork for everything simultaneously. The intro also points to episodes on youth and students, his call for them to build the nation, and importantly, women in nation building, highlighting Jinnah's progressive views, advocating for women's full participation in public life, which was quite forward-thinking.
It really was. And then this part takes a more personal, poignant turn. Health, struggles, and sacrifice looks at him leading despite his failing health.
A testament to his dedication, yes. It culminates with The Last Journey, his death on September 11, 1948, barely a year after independence, and the father of the nation, reflecting on the immense legacy he established in that incredibly short, intense period. This whole part, the intro suggests, portrays that immense burden of leadership, the raw challenges of statecraft, and how Jinnah's principles guided the nation's first steps.
Okay, that leads us to the final part, Part V, Legacy and Modern Relevance, episodes 51 right through to 65. This section seems designed to connect everything back to the present and future, exploring the lasting impact and relevance of Jinnah's vision, tying it all together.
Precisely. This is where the series makes its case for that world superpower destiny, presumably. It revisits his core principles in Jinnah's vision for Pakistan and faith, unity, discipline, presenting them as timeless guides. It delves into complex themes like Islam and modernity, exploring the balance Jinnah sought between faith and progress, and emphasizes his commitment to rule of law and justice and democracy and leadership, showing his constitutionalist leanings. It even looks beyond Pakistan with unity of the Muslim world, touching on his broader aspirations for cooperation among Muslim nations.
But it also acknowledges the complexities, right? The intro mentions challenges unfinished.
Yes, crucially. It seems it will look critically at ongoing issues like Kashmir, minority rights, governance challenges, acknowledging that Jinnah's vision hasn't always been fully realized, and these remain relevant struggles. Then comparisons with global leaders invites placing Jinnah in a broader context, asking what made his leadership unique. The Quaid's writings emphasizes going back to his own words for guidance, which is important.
Direct source material, good. Then there's From Vision to Reality, looking at Pakistan's path after him. And a speculative one. If Jinnah were alive today, what might he say or do now?
Always thought-provoking. And then it connects his vision explicitly to later periods and the future. Pakistan in the Cold War, and then bringing it full circle, the next world superpower, specifically mentioning the AI era. This directly addresses that bold title. It also includes Jinnah for the youth, aiming to inspire the next generation before concluding with final reflections on the eternal Quaid and Pakistan's destiny.
Wow. So that final section really aims to solidify the argument, bringing his history right into the present, linking his principles to contemporary challenges and future potential, including that superpower claim. It's an ambitious arc, covering history, constitutional theory, political praxis, and national destiny.
It really is an incredibly expansive and meticulously planned project, judging by this introduction. And hopefully this deep dive into the introduction has given you, our listener, that shortcut we promised. A map to understand the sheer scale and the core arguments of this massive 65-episode series on Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. It certainly highlights the depth you can expect and how the series intends to frame him not just historically, but as this enduring guide for Pakistan's future.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up our look at this introduction, maybe here's a thought to leave you with. How does the constitutional vision of a nation's founder, forged in such a tumultuous time, actually continue to shape its destiny decades, almost a century later? Especially when that destiny is being presented so boldly as that of a rising world superpower in our rapidly changing world. What lessons about leadership, about sticking to principles, about the sheer willpower needed to build something new against huge odds? What lessons can we draw from Jinnah's journey, as presented here, that might resonate even today? Those are the kinds of fascinating questions this series, and our discussion about its introduction really invites you to think about.